Somewhere in your refrigerator, there may be a piece of cheese with blue-green veins running through it, and you probably paid extra for that. Somewhere in a cellar, a wheel of cheese is growing a fuzzy white rind on purpose. Somewhere else, a butcher is aging beef for weeks in a carefully controlled room, allowing time, air, and enzymes to transform it into something richer, more tender, and more expensive. But if you open your lunchbox and find green fuzz on a sandwich, there's no debate.
No!
It goes in the trash. So why does mold ruin bread but make cheese famous? Why does one fuzzy patch mean danger while another becomes Roquefort, Stilton, Brie, Camembert, Miso, tempeh in some of the most prized food on earth? The answer begins with an uncomfortable truth. Your instinct to fear mold is not wrong. Some molds can produce toxic compounds called mycotoxins. One of the best known is aflatoxin, which can grow on certain foods, especially grains, nuts, and seeds stored in poor conditions. Exposure to high levels of aflatoxins can damage the liver and raise cancer risk. Then there is ergot, a fungus that can infect rye and other grains. Ergot has caused terrifying outbreaks of illness through history. It can produce compounds linked to burning pain, spasms, confusion, and hallucinations. In medieval Europe, these outbreaks became so infamous that people gave the illness a name: Saint Anthony's fire. Mold has caused real harm. So the question is not, is mold dangerous? Some mold absolutely is. The real question is why humans sometimes invite it into food on purpose. The first thing to understand is that mold is not one thing. It is a casual word we use for many different fungi. Some spoil food, some make medicines, some damage crops, some produce useful enzymes, some create flavors humans have spent centuries learning to love. A blue cheese is not safe because it has mold. It is safe when it is made with the right mold, in the right food, under the right conditions, with the right controls. That difference is everything. Take blue cheese. The blue veins in cheeses such as Roquefort, Stilton, Gorgonzola, and Cabrales come from a fungus called Penicillium roqueforti. Cheesemakers add it intentionally. Then, as the cheese matures, they create tiny openings that let oxygen move into the interior. The oxygen helps the fungus grow through the cheese in those famous blue-green veins. And while it grows, it changes the cheese. The fungus breaks down fats and proteins. That creates new flavor compounds: sharp, earthy, salty, peppery, buttery, and sometimes almost mushroom-like. The blue veins are not an accident. They are the recipe. Without the fungus, blue cheese would simply be cheese. With it, the cheese becomes something entirely different. The same basic idea explains Brie and Camembert. Their soft white rinds are made with selected cheese-making fungi, usually from the Penicillium camemberti group. That fuzzy-looking outer layer is not something that appeared by surprise in a refrigerator. It is part of the controlled ripening process. As the mold grows from the outside inward, it changes the texture beneath the rind. The cheese becomes softer and creamier. Its flavor changes. Its aroma changes. Its whole character changes. And in a strange way, humans have domesticated these fungi. Not with fences, not with collars, with repetition. For generations, cheesemakers saved and spread the strains that gave the best results. They used the fungi that made cheese ripen evenly, taste better, and develop the right color and texture. Over time, the fungi themselves changed. Scientists studying cheese molds have found populations shaped by human selection. Some strains are especially well suited to salty cheese environments. Some spread through cheese more effectively. Some create the flavor profiles cheesemakers want. That makes a blue cheese fungus something like a microscopic farm animal. It lives where humans put it. It grows where humans feed it. And it exists in the form we know because humans kept choosing it. But that raises an obvious question. If blue cheese mold can be good, why can you not simply scrape the mold off bread and keep eating? Because bread is a completely different environment. Bread is soft and porous. Mold sends thread-like structures into food, and those threads can spread far beyond the fuzzy patch you can see. The green spot on top may only be the visible part of a much larger growth inside the bread. You also do not know what kind of mold it is. You do not know whether it has produced toxins. You do not know what bacteria may have grown with it. You do not know how long it has been there. That uncertainty is the danger. With blue cheese, the fungus was chosen. With moldy bread, it is a stranger. The cheese was made to support a known culture under controlled conditions. The bread was exposed to whatever spores happened to land on it in your kitchen, grocery bag, pantry, or refrigerator. That is why the safest response to most moldy foods is simple. Throw them away. Some dense foods can sometimes be saved by cutting well beyond a small, moldy area. But soft bread, soft fruit, leftovers, jams, and many other foods are not worth guessing about. The rule is simple. If the mold belongs there, it is part of the food. If it appeared by surprise, treat it as a warning. And cheese is only one example. Mold also helps create miso, soy sauce, sake, and other foods made with koji. Koji is a mold, usually Aspergillus oryzae, grown on rice, barley, or soybeans. At first glance, it can look like something was left somewhere too long. It creates a pale, fuzzy layer across the grains. But koji is one of the most important ingredients in Japanese food culture. The mold releases enzymes that break down starches into sugars and proteins into smaller, flavor-rich compounds. Those changes help create the deep, savory taste found in miso and soy sauce. It is not spoilage, it is transformation. And this is where we need to make an important distinction. People sometimes call fermentation controlled rot. It is a catchy phrase, but it is not quite right. Rot usually means uncontrolled spoilage, unpredictable organisms breaking food down in ways that make it unsafe, unpleasant, or both. Fermentation is more controlled. It uses desired microorganisms, including bacteria, yeasts, and fungi, to change food in specific ways. The microbes may produce acid, alcohol, gases, and enzymes. Those changes can create flavor, alter texture, and help slow the growth of unwanted organisms. Sauerkraut is a good example. Cabbage contains natural sugars. Under the right conditions, lactic acid bacteria use those sugars and produce acid. The acid gives sauerkraut its sharp sour taste and makes the environment harder for many spoilage organisms to grow in. Kimchi works through a similar principle, although its ingredients in microbial communities can be more complicated. Yogurt, kefir, sourdough bread, pickles, wine, beer, chocolate, coffee, soy sauce, and many cheeses all depend on microorganisms changing food. Without that microbial work, they would not taste the way they do. Wine is not simply old grape juice. Beer is not simply old grain water. Chocolate does not begin as something that tastes like a chocolate bar. Coffee beans do not leave the fruit already tasting like coffee. In each case, microbial activity and enzymes help unlock flavors that were hidden in the raw ingredient. That does not mean every fermented food is automatically healthy or automatically safe. Fermentation can go wrong. Contamination can happen. Poor temperature control can create hazards. The fact that something is traditional does not make it risk-free. The reason successful fermentation works is not luck. It is control. Control of the starter culture, control of temperature, control of salt, control of moisture, control of time, control of airflow, and control of cleanliness. The same is true for dry-aged beef. A dry-aged steak is not simply old meat. The process begins with large cuts of beef placed in a carefully controlled environment. Temperature, humidity, airflow, and aging time are managed. Over time, moisture leaves the outer surface, concentrating flavor. Natural enzymes inside the meat gradually break down some proteins and connective tissue, helping make the meat more tender. The exterior becomes dry and forms a crust. That outer layer is trimmed away before the steak is sold or cooked. Microbes on the surface may contribute to flavor in some dry aging systems, but the process is not about allowing any random mold to grow on meat. Dry aging depends on precise environmental control, careful monitoring, and professional handling. That is why dry-aged beef from a proper facility can become a prized steak, and why a forgotten steak in the back of your refrigerator becomes a food safety problem. The difference is not bravery, it is microbiology. For most of human history, people learned this microbiology without knowing the word microbiology. They did not have microscopes. They did not know what bacteria were. They did not know the word enzyme. But they could observe. They knew one batch of cabbage lasted through winter while another turned foul. They knew one cheese rind was delicious while another made people sick. They knew a small amount of yesterday's bread dough could help make tomorrow's bread rise. They knew one barrel could help start the next batch of beer, wine, or fermented food. Over generations, those observations became traditions, and those traditions became food cultures. Before refrigeration, this knowledge could mean survival. Fresh milk spoils quickly. Turn it into cheese, yogurt, or kefir, and it can last much longer. Fresh cabbage can rot. Ferment it, and it can become a sour food that stores well. Fresh grapes can spoil. Ferment them, and they become wine. The original goal was not luxury. The goal was to stop food from disappearing. The incredible part is that humans did not merely preserve food with microbes. We learned to enjoy what the microbes did. We learned to crave sourness, tang, funk, umami, and the rich flavors created when proteins and fats are slowly transformed. Blue cheese tastes strange because it is strange. It is milk transformed by a fungus into a food, with flavors fresh milk could never produce. That is why one person can smell blue cheese and think, absolutely not, while another person smells it and thinks, that is perfect. The flavor sits right at the edge of a warning signal. It can remind us of Earth, mushrooms, caves, and decay. But inside a safe and familiar food tradition, those flavors become exciting instead of alarming. And maybe that is the real answer. Humans did not defeat mold. We learned to sort it. We learned that not every fuzzy patch is the same. We learned that some organisms belong in food only when they are selected, controlled, and understood. We learned that other organisms are warnings to throw the food away. That is not a small difference. It is the difference between Roquefort and rotten bread, between miso and spoiled soybeans, between dry-aged steak and forgotten meat, between fermentation and contamination. So the next time you see blue cheese, a white-rinded brie, a jar of miso, or a carefully aged steak, remember what you're really looking at. Not food that went bad and somehow became fashionable. You are looking at a partnership between humans and microscopic organisms that took centuries to build. We did not just learn to survive mold. We learned which kinds of transformation to invite to dinner. Which food sounds strangest to you? Blue cheese, tempeh, natto, dry-aged steak, or aged ham? Leave your answer in the comments and subscribe to Andy for more surprising science behind the foods we take for granted.